We are a nation of Christians and Muslims, Jews and Hindus, and non-believers. We are shaped by every language and culture and drawn from every end of this earth. Because we have tasted the bitter swell of civil war and segregation and emerged from that dark chapter stronger and more united, we cannot help but believe that these old hatreds shall someday pass, that the lines of tribes shall soon dissolve, that as the world grows smaller, our common humanity shall reveal itself. For the world has changed, and we must change with it.
Amen. Amen.
Now I will recite Selma by Rockabye. There are places and moments in America where this nation's destiny has been decided. Many are sites of war, Concord and Lexington, Appomattox and Gettysburg. Others are sites that symbolize the daring of America's character. Independence Hall and Seneca Falls, Kitty Hawk and Cape Canaveral. Selma is such a place. And one afternoon 50 years ago, so much of our turbulent history, the stain of slavery and anguish of civil war, the yoke of segregation and tyranny of Jim Crow, the death of 4 little girls in Birmingham, and the dream of a Baptist preacher, met on that bridge. It was not a clash of armies, but a clash of wills, a contest to determine the meaning of America. And because of men and women like John Lewis, Joseph Lowry, Hosea Williams, Amelia Boynton, Diane Nash, Ralph Abernathy, C.T. Vivian, Andrew Young, Fred Shuttlesworth, Dr. King, and so many more, the idea of a just America, a fair America, an inclusive America, a generous America, that idea ultimately triumphed. As is true across the landscape of American history, we cannot examine this moment in isolation. The March on Selma was part of a broader campaign that spanned generations, the leaders that day part of a long line of heroes. We gather here to celebrate them. We gather here to honor the courage of ordinary men and women, willing to endure billy clubs, the chastening rod, tear gas, and the trampling hoof. Ordinary Americans who, despite the gush of blood and splintered bone, would stay true to their North Star and keep marching towards justice. They did as Scripture instructed: rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. And in the days to come, they went back again and again. And when the trumpet call sounded for more to join, the people came, black and white, young and old, Christian and Jew, all waving the American flag and singing the same anthems full of faith and hope. The Americans who crossed the bridge were not physically imposing, but they gave courage to millions. They held no elected office, but they led a nation. They marched as Americans who had endured hundreds of years of brutal violence and countless daily indignities, but they didn't seek special treatment, only the equal treatment that was promised to them almost a century before. What they did here will reverberate through the ages, not because the change they won was preordained, not because their victory was complete, but because they proved that nonviolent change is possible, that love and hope can conquer hate. As we commemorate their achievements, we are well served to remember that at the time of the marches, many in power condemned rather than praised them. Back then they were called communists or half-breeds, outside agitators and moral degenerates. They were called everything but the name their parents gave them.
Amen.
Their faith was questioned, their lives were threatened, their patriotism challenged. And yet, what could be more American than what happened in this place? What could more profoundly vindicate the idea of America than plain and humble people, the unsung, the downtrodden, the dreamers not of high station, not born to wealth or privilege, not of one religious tradition, but many, all coming together to shape their country's course. What greater expression of faith in the American experiment than this? What greater form of patriotism is there than the belief that America is not yet finished, that we are strong enough to be self-critical, that each successive generation can look upon our imperfections and decide that it is in our power to remake this nation and more closely align with our highest ideals. That's why Selma isn't some outlier in the American experience. That's why it's not a museum or static monument to behold from a distance. It is instead the manifestation of a creed written into our founding documents. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Yes.
These are not just words. They are a living thing, a call to action, a roadmap to citizenship, an insistence in the capacity of free men and women that we may shape our own destinies. That's what this movement was all about, one leg in our long journey toward freedom. The American instinct that led these young men and women to pick up the torch and cross the bridge is the same instinct that led patriots to choose revolution over tyranny. It's the same instinct that led immigrants from across oceans in the Rio Grande. It's the same instinct that led women to reach for the ballot and workers to organize against an unjust status quo. It's the same instinct that led us to plant a flag at Iwo Jima and on the surface of the moon. It's the idea held by generations of citizens who believe that America is a constant work in progress, who believe that loving this country requires more than singing its praises or avoiding uncomfortable truths. It requires the occasional disruption, the strength to speak out for what's right and shake up the status quo. First and foremost, we have to recognize that one day's commemoration, no matter how special, is not enough. If Selma taught us anything, it's that our work is never done. The American experiment in self-government gives work and purpose to each generation. This is work for all Americans and not just some. If we want to honor, not just whites, not just blacks. If we want to honor the courage of those who marched that day, then all of us are called to possess their moral imagination. All of us need to feel as they did, the fierce urgency of now. All of us need to recognize as they did, that change depends on our actions, our attitudes, the things we teach our children. And if we make such effort, no matter how hard it may seem, laws can be passed, consciences can be stirred, and consensus can be built. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint.